What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I'm going to be starting some work on the 3-valve Mustang to get it ready for the track. So I just received some coilovers from our sponsor Flashark, so we're going to install those today. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, so stay tuned. Alright, so here's what we've got. So we've got the front coilovers here, we have our rear shocks, we have our spring perches, our rear springs, and then we also have the front sway bar links, and then we also have the small spanner wrench and then the big spanner wrench that it comes with, so you can adjust your coils and your perches. So now it's time to get the car up in the air, and then we can start taking things apart. Now that the car's up in the air, now we can take the wheels off. And as you guys can see, because we have that coolant leak, it leaked out from the valley pan now that it's at an angle. So that's not great, but soon after this repair, we are going to be replacing the coolant line that runs under the intake. So stay tuned for that video. What the hell is that, Billy? That doesn't look too great. Well, I guess our fender liner's coming out today. Not required on this model. Now we're going to take off our brake calipers, so you're going to take off your 2 bolts on the back here, and these are 12 millimeters. So now that we have the caliper out of the way and we have our brake pads removed, now we have to remove our bracket. So it's going to be these 2 bolts back here, and these are 14 millimeters. So while you're watching this, you might be saying to yourself, well, Gabe, you could just leave the brakes all together and just take it off as one unit. That is true. But while I'm doing this, I decided I wanted to grease the pins because look at this, guys. I am pushing pretty hard on that. And these things, oh, this one's not too bad, but this one is seized up. So I'm going to pull out these pins and re-grease them and clean them up and all that. I'm just gonna take the time to do a little brake service while I'm doing this because, yeah, I don't think that these brakes have been serviced in a hot minute. And honestly, I mean, these do have a decent amount of life left. I'm probably just not going to replace the pads quite yet. I'll let them run for a little while longer, but at least for now, I want to make sure that everything's greased and good to go. So now that the brakes are out of the way, we are going to use a 10 millimeter to get this bracket off. This is going to hold your wiring, and then we're also going to use a clip tool to basically pull this clip out of here, just that way everything's loose from the strut, and then you can basically just pull all of this right off. So now using an 18 millimeter socket, I'm going to remove this nut on the sway bar link, and then also this bolt here and this bolt here for the strut itself. And guys, if the ball joint spins like it did on this one, then you'll have to use a 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench and either just a regular wrench or a crescent wrench to hold this guy. And that's going to hold that steady while you undo the 18 millimeter nut. All right, and the final step here is going to be to remove these 4 nuts at the top here, and these are going to be a 13 millimeter, so we're going to take those off now. Just make sure you have your hand at the bottom to catch it. And now the last part of the disassembly is getting this 18mm nut here to remove the sway bar link entirely. So now it's time to install the new equipment. Now that the coilover's in place, now we can install our sway bar link. All right, everything is torqued up nice and tight. I also tightened up these guys. Luckily, the ball joints didn't spin on these, so I was able to just tighten it up with an impact. This one I had to get with a wrench back here because obviously you can't fit an impact in there. That one wasn't too bad, but you do have to use a pretty small wrench. So, but yeah, besides that, not too hard. So I'm getting the brakes back on. I wanted to show you guys, I did re-grease these pins. Now these work exactly how they're supposed to. These things were super gummed up and they were super seized. These things feel super free now. So that makes me feel a lot better about the brakes. So now I'm going to tighten up all these brake bolts, and then I'm going to throw the caliper and the pads back on, tighten everything back up, and then throw the wheel back on, and then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And one last thing that I forgot to mention, after you have your caliper back on, obviously put your clip in back here, but then also don't forget about your wiring and your brake line back here. It's going to mount up right there, and you'll notice there are no threads on your new coilover. So there were threads on the OEM one. You'll see there's threads there, and this is the old bolt. So it doesn't come with a nut. But what I realized is that the nuts from the old one here, these guys, I had a bunch of spares afterwards, or 4. And so I just took one of these, and this guy fits on there perfectly. So yeah, I'm just gonna thread that on there, throw it behind right here, and just bolt it up, and it should be good to go. Perfect. So now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, now that this side is all installed, we're gonna move on to the rear. Well, it's on the ground now in the front, and I have to say, guys, that looks pretty sick. I mean, might be a smidge too low, but I think we're just gonna send it. What do you think, Marshall?
There's no such thing as too low. If these things aren't maxed out, then it's not low enough. It does not look good in the back now.
Yeah,
Super
the back,
rake.
This is some monster truck stuff, guys. We can't be having that. Yeah, he can fit his whole foot in there.
Shoe test failed.
Failed. Yeah, look at that. Oof. All right, guys, so what we just did right now is we took off these rear calipers and we greased the pins on the rear as well, because these were also a little crusty. You don't have to take these off for this. We just did it because, this Mustang needed some help. But so now what we're gonna do, we are going to remove this sway bar link here by pulling off this guy. There's also a bolt up here at the top of your strut. And then we also have to get the bolt down here. And that's really it. So we have the car on jack stands. We have a jack supporting the pumpkin in the back. And so what we're going to do is basically once we undo these, we're going to rotate this out of the way, and then we can undo the shock mount on the top, lower this down just a little bit, so that way we can pull the springs out, replace the springs with the lowering springs, and then replace our struts as well. So we'll go through that process now. All right, guys, well, update. So we tried to get this guy out, and it is so seized in the bushing that, yeah, you guys can see it does not want to come out. We hammered on it and everything, and now the threads are borked, and we can't get anything back on it. So, yeah, this is trashed. So I've got it sitting in PB Blaster, and probably tomorrow we're going to figure out something else. I don't know. I'm probably going to have to heat it up a lot because it can't be tight if it's liquid. So our next plan of attack is we're just going to disconnect the sway bar from the bottom here. So we're going to disconnect these guys and then swing the sway bar out of the way this way instead. So if you have an old, rusty, crusty, dusty 3-valve like mine, you're probably going to run into this issue. So use that information as you will, because yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks and it kind of screwed us. But we're going to continue forward because that's what we do. What the what's behind it?
Some kind of hexagon shape. Hexagon mystery flavor. Hexagon.
Okay, so now we're going to take off this bottom mount for the shock. All right, now for the top bolt, you just yank this back and it's right there. Easy peasy. Thanks, Ford.
Wow, that's nice. That's actually really nice.
All right, this is a 14, so we're going to hit that now. Okay, guys, update. So we got the strut out. So underneath these weird little bracket guys is actually a regular bolt. So if you do have a situation like us where the bolt, it's like tack welded on here, if it breaks off of this like retainer and it just starts spinning, you're not shit out of luck. You basically just have to like peel this guy off, and then you can just get a 13 millimeter or 13 millimeter on it, and then at that point you can get it off. So yeah, we've been fighting the sway bar, man. I'm telling you, like first it was this, then trying to get this off. It's just everything was so seized up back here. It turned this 30-minute job into a 2-hour job. It was just a nightmare. So, and here's what that little retainer looks like. So I peeled that off. As you guys can see, it broke the little tack welds on it. So yeah, I just peeled that off. All right, so now that the sway bar is swung out of the way here, it's not attached to the rear end at all. We are going to lower the jack a little bit so that way these springs come out, and then we're going to install the new hardware.
I'm trying to feel. There we go.
You versus the guy she tells you not to worry about.
Okay, we got the extender right here. It's going to make it all the difference right there.
The extendos. Boom. We're going to sit this guy in there like that. And then we're going to take this guy. As you guys see, we kind of put it like midway. But But you know, you just kind of sit that guy in there like that. It has a lot of play, as you guys see. It's got a lot of room. So yeah, hopefully these things don't just fall out. But I think that once we put the strut in and we lower the car, I think it'll probably be fine. It'll be fine. It's okay. All right, so now we're installing the strut here. So this is just gonna go straight up into this hole. And then I've got Marshall at the top. He's just gonna put the bushing and then the washer and the nut on top. And you wanna have the tapered side facing up. So now that we're all started, we're gonna jack up the rear end, and then we're gonna start throwing bolts in for the bottom, and then basically compress the spring a little bit, and then we'll lock down these rings here, so that way we have our adjustment finalized. And then at that point afterwards, you should put together the rear sway bar, but we're probably gonna put that together tomorrow, since we're gonna need to buy some new hardware for it. All right, and now that everything is put back together, you just swing up the sway bar, and then you put in your bolts if you did it this way, or you put back in your link here, and then you put your bolt back in there if you did it that way. So again, I'm just gonna put this one nut in here on the bottom just to keep it together, and then I'm gonna have to get a new bolt for it tomorrow because we rounded the crap out of this one when we were trying to get it out. So I'll replace that tomorrow, but for this video, I'm just gonna get this one in there. I mean,
It
dude,
needs more.
It does need more.
It needs more.
But that looks a lot fucking better, bro. I mean, looking at this thing, damn.
This is how a Mustang is supposed to look.
Dude, that's how a Mustang's supposed to look. That looks great, honestly. But yes, she does need just a smidge more. I definitely thought it was gonna slam it with how tiny those springs were. I thought it was gonna slam the crap out of it. Oh, dude, we can give her some more. She's still got some room. Well, it's a couple days later now, and the Mustang is completely done. So here's the front. I am super happy with that fitment up there. And then the back, I did lower just a smidge more. As you guys can see, it's a little bit lower than it was. Still not quite as low as I was going to go for. I did want to go for a little bit more flush fitment. So it could go down probably another 1/2 inch to 1 inch. But for now, I'm happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. So I did also fix my sway bar issues. So I replaced those bolts that were on those welded brackets. And then I also replaced the nut on the back of the sway bar link. So as you can see up there, I did replace the nut on the back of that. So that's all good to go. But I am in love with how this car looks, and I want to give a huge thank you to Flashark for sending out these coilovers to us. And if you guys want to pick up a set for yourselves, make sure to check out the link in the description. Okay, now for something that not a whole lot of coilover install videos show you how to do the correct way. This is how to lower your car the right way on coilovers. So basically you're going to adjust this collar up. So we're going to call this the A collar, B collar, and C collar. So you want to adjust this up. And then, so this entire, spring assembly here, and then these two collars, this is going to be used to set your spring preload. This is not going to be what you use to lower and raise your car. As of right now, I brought all of this completely down, so there's no spring preload on this. You can see it's completely loose. Just that way I can show you guys after how to set the preload. A lot of coilovers will come with the springs preloaded, so you don't have to do any adjustments if you want to keep it at the stock level. I'm probably going to do minimal preload on this since I'm going to be running it at the track, but I probably will do a little bit. So first let's get into how to do this. So starting off, now that these are A and B collars are snug together, you're going to want to rotate the A collar clockwise, so it's going to go this way. So we're going to get our wrench here and turn it, and you'll see this entire assembly, this entire cylinder rotates as well. And so what that's going to do is that's going to bring the threads in down this way, and that's going to lower the car without messing with your preload. And honestly, I'm not sure how low I'm gonna need to go with this, so I'm just gonna set that right there, and then I'm gonna lower the car and see how it does after I set the preload here. And then if I need to adjust it anymore, I'll just do that, do some fine adjustments from the driver's side and then the passenger side. So now just tighten that up. And then now for the preload, you're going to get these two collars separated here. And then what you want to do is you want to rotate your coil all the way up by hand. And basically you're going to tighten it as much as it can possibly go by hand until you can't anymore. And then from there, then you can set your preload. So that's about as much as I can do by hand. So now I'm going to get the collar all the way up. So if you want 0 preload, you're just going to leave it right here, tighten these two collars and call it a day. But if you want to have, depending on the millimeters of preload, you're basically going to space these two collars depending on that millimeter set of preload. So, you know, some coilover manufacturers will say like 5 millimeters of preload, something like that. So what you'll do is you'll measure this space in between here. And so usually I'll use like a pair of calipers or something like that I can measure in between there. And you'll basically just use this and rotate this until you get your desired amount of preload. And then once you get up to that level, then you just tighten down your B collar and then snug them up. And if you don't have a pair of calipers or anything to measure with, you can actually use your wrench here. So the thickness of this is about 4 or 5 millimeters. So if you just stick this in there like that, that'll tell you a pretty good measurement of where you're at. So if you just need to eyeball it, this will get you pretty close. Well, I'm pretty happy with this, so now I'm gonna put the wheel back on and see where we're at. All right, I'd say that looks pretty good. So now we're on the rear of the car, and this is gonna be a little bit different than the front because this is a divorced spring setup. So the way that you're gonna adjust the height is going to be from the spring perch here. So you're going to adjust your ring down if you want to lower the car, and then up if you want to raise the car, and that will give you that full adjustment there. But for the preload, you're going to adjust that here. So you're going to, again, undo this ring here, and you're going to just adjust this cylinder down until your coil meets up at the top of the perch up here, and that will give you that preload or, you know, contact point on the spring when it's at its maximum suspension travel. So that's kind of what you want to do. It's not rocket science for the rear end. This is not going to give you, you know, a whole lot of adjustment, but it will at least keep your spring from flying out, you know, and it'll keep the car pretty happy if you make the adjustments correctly back here. So my height is already where I want it, so I'm not actually going to adjust that here. I did that earlier in the video, and I'm pretty happy with the height. So all I'm going to do is adjust this. And you can see by doing this, it's actually raising this whole assembly upward. So you'll be able to feel once, I mean, there's a ton of room right here. So we're gonna want to adjust this all the way up until you can't lift this spring off of the perch anymore. All right, we're getting much closer. All right, I'd say that's pretty good. And now once you've set all of your preloads, you can also adjust your damping with this guy here, or at least on most coilovers you can. I'm pretty sure that these are adjustable on these coilovers. And then you also have your camber adjustments on the fronts as well. I'm probably not gonna mess with these. Usually on these more budget brand coilovers, they're not going to do a whole lot, but you can mess around with them, see if they change things for you. But yeah, I'll probably just leave them where they're at for now and see how it rides. feel. These things don't feel too bad. They're definitely a lot stiffer. I mean, that's what we're going for with a coilover. Like I said before, this is going to be a track car, so we want this thing to be planted, and this is much better over the blown out shocks that I had before. So in my book, this is a win. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I think that the suspension is pretty well sorted now. At this point, you know, once I get the coolant lines replaced, and then once I get the new clutch installed, this thing's gonna be ready to go. Before I close this video out, the goal for the budget Mustang GT track build is $1,500, and I really don't want to go a penny over that. So far, we are well on pace to beat that, and because Flashark provided the coilovers for the build, this mod was completely free. The other parts that I bought for repairs are the serpentine belt for $31, the coolant lines, and then the intake manifold gaskets, and together those were $92. So altogether, these parts were $123. So as far as the budget for the build, that's our total. But there you have it, guys. That's how to install the Flashark coilover kit on your 05 to 09 Mustang GT. But let me know in the comments below what you think about this kit. That's all for this week, but if you enjoyed the content for today, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future content. I'll catch you guys next week. Later.